Any second now. And we're live. Hello, welcome to Trek That. I'm your host, Keith F. Shovelin. Joining me tonight is William W. Wofford, as we're going to be talking about a recent incident that happened on Reddit and at a Star Trek convention, as we discuss conservative trekkers. But first, William, do you want to say it?
Roll that beautiful beam footage. In the 21st century.
What do you think of the newest generation?
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, wait, where is it? I thought I had uploaded it on here.
I did see it. I saw it. Like
the picture.
Yeah, the Reddit picture had like 1.1 million somethings on it.
Okay, it's what I was trying to find was, where'd it go?
I had no idea Kate Mulgrew was in Murder, She Wrote.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of people were in some way, a lot of different. Okay. So, all right, for some reason it's coming in real small. So, yes. So, our topic tonight is conservative trekkers. Now, the Trek That we usually break down certain news stories. This was an incident that happened now 2 weeks ago. And obviously, there's been a lot of other news stories in the past 2 weeks, but it's one that we want to continue. Now, first, I want a little mea culpa here. I spent hours trying to find a picture of a notable conservative or Republican politician that's a Star Trek fan doing something Trek related. Like Senator Ted Cruz from Texas, Republican, claims that he is a Star Trek fan. He had a whole article on saying a whole thing in an interview saying that Kirk would have been a Republican. But I could not find a picture of him ever in a uniform, giving the Vulcan salute, any of that. So I was like just looking for people that would have, like, say, a MAGA hat and the Vulcan salute, and nothing. So then I tried different things. I found a woman dressed for a convention in the TOS red skirt, and she was holding up a sign with saying "Kirk makes Starfleet great again." But that didn't really seem as the same thing. So the best I could find was Ducat wearing a mock "Make Cardassia Great Again." So no mea culpa on that one.
Yeah.
And just for the record, also, truly, if you are true political analysis, "Make America Great Again" is, of course, former President Trump's slogan, and the followers have adopted it as MAGAs. But the thing is, former President Trump isn't really a conservative. A lot of his political beliefs don't really fit within our political spectrum.
Right.
Because there are some things that he believes, well, it's all questionable about his beliefs, the way he seems to jump around on things. But things that he seems to be espousing, at least right now, some things are considered leftist, some things are considered rightist, some things conservative, some things libertarian, some things more socialist.
Mm-hmm.
And the key thing also is that political beliefs are a spectrum that go in multiple directions. So there's open mind. There's like extremely open-minded, which is what liberal is defined as, and then there's more deep-seated cynical, that's more conservative. But then there's also the idea of collectivist versus objectivist. So you have libertarians versus socialist communists,
Mm.
and so it's not a case of the left versus right, even though that's what we typically use in our country to define politics. It's funny is even calling it the left and the right comes from the French uh, government, their Assemblée Nationale, their House of Representatives. All the liberals sat on the left side of the room, and the conservatives sat on the right. So that's how they got left versus right as far as one or the other. And as far as blue versus red states versus blue states, we used to go back and forth trading what color was each party until the 2000 election, which was the first election I voted in which Vice President Al Gore lost to Texas Governor George W. Bush. But it took a few weeks to figure out because of how close it came in Florida. And it was actually a comment by David Letterman on The Late Show with David Letterman. He said, I got a simple solution to this. Let Gore be president of the blue states. Let Bush be president of the red states. And from then on, the whole red state versus blue state nomenclature has stuck. So prior to 2000, like you would look at, if you looked at the maps for 96 or 92 when it was Bill Clinton running for president, he could be the red states on the map or the blue states, or, and they had the white states were the one that were undecided. It wasn't specifically tied one color to one side. And it's really funny is that red has been tied to the conservatives, which are considered the right side, when red was also connected to communism, with communism is on the left and lower side, and at least true socialism and communism, as in those that espoused by Karl Marx and Frederick Engels. They believe that the government, that collective ownership of business and property allows for government to just kind of fade away. Of course, in practice, any country that has attempted to try true Marxist communism or socialism has then made a turn towards authoritarianism, which is where you have a ruling class that enforce those rules. And that's what you have in Russia, and it's what you used to have in China and Cuba. But those systems have gone away. So yeah, there is no true Marxist communist government still in existence today. Okay, that's a lot of all over the place there. So now let's go to what started this whole conversation. And that's here. We have this Reddit post from 15 days ago. A person named GeoSage comments, I have a couple of friends up in Vegas this weekend. They want to turn their brains off and go nerd out and meet some Star Trek actors to have some fun. Today, during a panel with Jerry Ryan, she went off for about 10 minutes straight telling Trump supporters to go fuck themselves multiple times. Panel with Captain Janeway had a fan asking her for her political opinions, and the panel turned into a huge Kamala love fest. My friends now feel hated by everyone there and are keeping quiet. Say what you will, and it's true of Star Trek, particularly modern Trek, but it's a fucking convention. Why can't people just fucking nerd out about stupid, fun sci-fi shit? Why do leftists have to make it about politics every single fucking time? I feel horrible for my friends. They just wanted to do something outside of their usual and have a stupid nerd time. Now all they're taking away from this is how 7 of 9 hates them with a fucking passion. And then, of course, the person commented, good God, this post blew up on another sub, and the thousands of comments from the unhinged left are absolutely horrific. These people absolutely hate us with a violent passion. Be safe out there. Now, I will note that I found out about this from Jerry Ryan herself, someone that shared it, and then she shared it on Threads. She goes, for the record, I didn't tell anyone to go fuck themselves, but really confused what it is about Star Trek they really like, since they clearly missed the entire message of the whole franchise. I mean, it's not like it was ever subtle.
Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What are you going to say?
Well, I remember I worked for this. Well, back to actually, this covers two of your points that you made just now. So I worked for a law firm and I was their videographer. It was an employment law firm. Okay, I was there for about 10 months. For a few of those months, I forgot the gentleman's name. I just know that some of the work that I did for this politician happens to be on my videography reel. Well, anyway, the lawyer, who is Josh Sanford, was friends with this conservative politician who was running for state representative or whatever district, whatever he was doing, whatever it was irrelevant. So it was the closest thing to a conservative politician that loved Star Trek. And so I remember asking him, and I said, "Hey, can I ask you like a political personal question?" He said, "Yeah, sure, buddy." I was like, "Well, you're a Star Trek fan, and you seem like you're very knowledgeable on it. You have quoted things to me from TOS, Deep Space Nine, The Next Generation, and a little bit of Voyager. So why are you a diehard Star Trek fan and you're conservative? Can you explain to me where they meet, or what is your perception of Trek that I'm not seeing?" Because because I'm not quite getting it, because when I see Star Trek, I see the first interracial kiss on national television. I see the reason why we have cell phones. I see stuff like that. And he just told me that he liked how Kirk ran things and that he wished that they kept Christopher Pike. And I said, well, that version of Christopher Pike didn't like women on his bridge. Can you so what are we getting at? He said, I just like the way that they did things. I'm more about tradition. And I said, well, and then it just so happens Strange New World season 1 had just came out that year.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I think you would enjoy Strange New Worlds. He said, I don't know, I'm not all about that new Trek, that woke Trek. And I said, well, they are even naming it the way they named their original series titles, and they're with a modern twist. They are staying true to their original uniforms and the bridge and the ship. Like, it doesn't look like a J.J. Abrams ship. Like, it actually does look what we would see in a modern way, a TOS type ship, like with the whole deflector just looking like an antenna.
Mm-hmm.
So, but he didn't really give me a straight answer, so I don't really get it.
Well, I mean, the thing is, we see the subtext.
Right.
And for a lot of Star Trek fans, the subtext is why we're fans. We hear Jean-Luc Picard say the pursuit of personal wealth is no longer a driving aspiration for humanity.
That's
We
right.
work to better ourselves instead. And we take that, yes, we would like that someday.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, some of the things are kind of lost in realizing, remember that we are seeing it through the veil, through the portal of a quote unquote military ship of Starfleet. So it's understandable that people will have free access to healthcare, free access to meals and everything. You don't see anybody have to pay for their replicate things. I mean, yes, they have replicate rations in Voyager because they don't have the power output to match the constant use. But it's not like we're seeing average society. Deep Space Nine is the closest we saw to sort of average society in Star Trek. And even then, it was still through that partial military lens.
Can I ask you something about that then?
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard, like trading information, trading gems, trading technologies or whatever. But Deep Space Nine was the first Star Trek show I've noticed that actually used currency, that being gold press platinum.
Right.
Now, my knowledge on Trek currency is a little bit limited. So other than goods and food and technologies and gems and stuff like that, maybe gold if it's worth half a damn. Is gold press platinum like the general thing in that period? Like,
that's what they made it when they went to make the show. They realized they needed to have a currency because they're outside Starfleet. so people would need, especially when you have quirks, which is a casino, among other things, and they needed currency for it. Now, there was currency in Trek before Deep Space Nine.
Okay.
Going back to the original series, you had the game series of Triskelion, in which Kirk, Uhura, and Chekhov were basically kidnapped and made to fight to the death against the people and on this planet. And you had the brains in there that would wager Quatloos again on the different fights. Then there, of course, were references to currencies here and there. It's just we never saw really a discussion of currency among the crew, like when they went anywhere. And it was just it was a matter of Roddenberry saying, well, they don't have to worry about currency. It wasn't until Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home when they said these people are still using money, and when they're at the restaurant and she has to, Dr. Julian Taylor has to pay because well, I don't have money. I don't, we don't do money in the 24th century. And it's all becomes a proud of. So breaking down the economics of it, it's goods and services and how you pay for them.
Right.
When in what is in Star Trek is supposed to show a post-scarcity economy in which things are very easily procured. And so they're so easily procured that there's no cost to them. And that you truly have people that make things because they love to make them. And what they get for it is the joy of knowing that people enjoy them.
Like Cisco's?
Like Cisco's. And you don't see
I didn't see.
you don't see the Doctor getting paid for his holo novels. You don't see Tom Paris getting paid for his holo novels either. It's just that's what they come to in society. We did see a case of one person in Star Trek that just couldn't make it work, but was still trying. And that being the Bashirs, Dr. Julian Bashir's parents.
Yeah.
His father is sort of a guy that just can't figure out what he wants to do with his life, and all he knows is that he wanted his son to be the best, so they were willing to pay
to
somehow
get him
him the genetic changes. But they talk about him as if he just jumps from job to job, and it's something that's new. But at no time is the job tied to them having a place to live and getting food, the core things that you need to survive. So there's the understanding that you work because you want to. And of course, in our society, that seems odd because there's quite a few people that, if given the choice between work and not work and still be taken care of, they would choose not work.
You would choose not to work, or at least not to work where we're at, because a lot of whereas in the future, from the lens that we are given, they are working from a labor of love. Right.
And in some cases, they have to try different things to find what that labor of love is.
Yeah. Because you remember, it was very briefly, and we knew that it was BS, but briefly, even Worf considered going to like the Nabarite Alliance in Deep Space Nine. And that was literally the only time I ever heard of them. But all I knew is that they were distant on like the other side of the quadrant.
Yeah, there isn't much reference to them. So
yeah.
But I mean, we never really get into the economics that clearly, and so a lot of political theory is based off of economics like that, and then of course it's based on social theory. We do have in Strange New Worlds, Pelia in the past second season of Strange New Worlds talk about the sort of socialist utopia that they're currently practicing, and that she has a stash of items in case it doesn't work, in case it fails.
Yeah.
But so understanding, so I wanted to make sure that what we did in this episode was we weren't trashing conservatives.
Right.
we disagree on some things. In the United States, right now, things are at a fever pitch as far as political conversations. And now I work in Washington D.C. for the federal government. I live in Northern Virginia, just outside D.C. William lives in Little Rock, Arkansas, and of course, we also have the racial disparities and socioeconomic disparities between the two of us. I am divorced with two kids and a house. William is single in an apartment, and uh, there's a lot of differences between Will and I, but for the most part, we agree on certain political things.
Right.
And in some cases, that's kind of what you, it's kind of understanding for us to have a Star Trek conversation on podcasts like this. It's really difficult to get into the nuances of Star Trek and find people to talk about those nuances that don't see it from at least a similar political angle to us. Now, I used to consider myself more moderate over the past 20 years, whether it's been me shifting positions on certain things or the the window of what is considered left, right, and moderate has shifted towards one side. That has made me more liberal. I'm not sure, but and I know there's at least a couple people in the Trekkers Delight Discord that would not call themselves liberal, and we had a brief conversation earlier today. I was hoping that some of them could join us on the panel tonight, but it's not that difficult of a thing to understand. We're talking about entertainment, and like I've read a lot of books, I've watched a lot of movies, I've watched a lot of TV shows, I've listened to a lot of radio and music and all kinds of things. And some stuff I just listen to and I let it in one ear, out the other. It's all for entertainment. So I might not see the political reasoning there. I not see the subtext. I may not see the hidden message or the somewhat more overt message.
Mm.
And I can understand the thinking of woke Trek for the current version of Star Trek.
Right. Discovery Forward. Yeah.
Yeah, because and the easiest way to compare it is Strange New Worlds. If you go back and watch the original series, the entire episode, the entire 45 to 50-minute episode was taken up with the story of the week. You had one storyline, and that was what that ship was doing with the main character. There wasn't multiple storylines for the most part.
A plot, B plot, right. Yeah.
Yes. That was a 90s Trek thing where they started having A plot, B plot, or even C plot, where you would get more into the characters' personal lives. And that's part of the change in television as well. If you watch a lot of the TV shows in the 60s, it was all very straightforward. You had one storyline you followed through to the end. And like looking at like Corbomite Maneuver, the whole episode is Kirk and his crew on the bridge dealing with this thing. First, it was a small thing. They destroyed it. Then you have the big yellow ship. Then a small bit breaks off where they finally they defeat it in a basically an intergalactic game of chicken.
Yeah, that was funny.
But the whole time, technically, there are two storylines there. It's just they're all dealt with together, so you think there's only one. But you're dealing with the navigator on the bridge, who basically is newer in the role. He's a little wet behind the ears, and he's scared he's going to die, and he just wants to fire, wants to, attack. And in the end, he's the one that becomes the ambassador to Balok to go visit the First Federation. Now, what's funny is at that time in Star Trek, it was United Earth. It was USPA.
It
was not the United Federation of Planets.
Yeah, because I was like, wait a minute, did they say? Because I'm almost done with season 1, and I was like, United Federation of Planets. I can understand them saying United Earth or something close to that in Enterprise, which I'm glad that they, kind of like, I guess they tried to recover that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But But I was like, oh, and then so it just brushed out of my head. I'm like, okay, Roddenberry didn't think of this yet. Maybe
Hmm.
I'm gonna pretend that United Earth is a nickname.
Well, yeah. So throughout most of the first season, it was the United Earth. It wasn't Starfleet. It was USPA, the United Earth Space Probe Agency, which wasn't given an actual breakdown until years later. But it's in Charlie X. Charlie makes a joke the about USPA, saying it's hard to pronounce the acronym. But yeah, so it's interesting that in Corbett Maneuver you have a representative of the First Federation, is what they call it, and on maps of the galaxy they still have the First Federation existing into the 24th century. So now you watch Strange New Worlds, and you have episode 2 of Strange New Worlds, where you had Aurora as a cadet showing up at the officers for the captain's dinner in full uniform, being slightly hazed by Ortegas. And then, but you also have the main story of dealing with this asteroid that's on its way to collide with this planet, and it's being protected by some sort of shields, and there was the protectors that came stop them. So you had the main storyline there, but also you're getting more about Aurora's backstory.
Yes.
Which one was amazing that we didn't have it over the previous 55 years. But then you watch the original series and there wasn't places for backstory.
Yeah.
I mean, the first aired episode, yes, you got backstory for McCoy because that's the man trap, and you get Nancy.
Right.
He has this relationship with this woman. But we don't know anything more about McCoy. It's barely talked about the fact that he's divorced and has a daughter. That's something. He has a daughter. And this is something more noticeable in the 2009 movie, Star Trek. It's like the wife got the planet from me in the divorce. I got left as me bones.
Yeah, I thought, oh. I mean, I knew about the divorce part, but I didn't learn that until, 2009. But like, I didn't know he had a daughter.
Yep, he has a daughter. And it's never really ever mentioned on the show. And the things we find out more about Spock's family because of the fact they come on board. Like we find out that Kirk has a brother because you see him dead in an episode. Of course, It's Shatner with a fake mustache, but still. And then his nephew, who's supposed to come live with him, and we never see them ever again. But so we only tend to get backstories, at least on the key three. Except then we get Chapel's backstory that she was engaged to Dr. Roger Corby, who is going to be appearing in season 3 of Strange New Worlds. They've cast an actor to play Dr. Roger Corby.
So, oh my God, is he gonna be like the human version, or is he gonna be like the cybernetic?
The human version.
The human version before he changes and assimilates himself, low key. Like,
absolutely. And so we're getting more on that backstory. So, but now they can do things with technology. They can do things with editing. That there were a lot more tense moments, a lot more, moments that were stuff that never would fly in television today in the original series.
Would never, yeah.
And as far as subtext, if you were raised in the 1960s, seeing an Asian man and a black woman on the bridge of this starship is incredible. Nowadays, that's not considered a big thing, as it should.
Right.
So, for some people that are growing up now, if they're conservatives, there's stuff that conservatives in the 60s would have absolutely been against. But nowadays, they don't have a problem with.
Right.
And that's just a case of time going on and people pining for different eras. So,
right.
All right, I've been bloviating here. It's too bad we didn't have more people show up for the panel. We'll try to do more. We're going to have a couple more over the course of the next month. I want to get this one done now because it's been 2 weeks already since the incident happened on Reddit and at the Star Trek Las Vegas. We are going to be having one about the current American political system compared to Star Trek power structures.
I would love that. Sounds fun.
Yeah, and plus we got to do more. We're going to talk about the merger between Skydance and Paramount Global to create new Paramount.
I was really about to ask that. Like,
Yeah.
I understand that Star Trek is produced technically by CBS, which is a
Okay.
sub extension, but but the studios itself is gone. Like,
Well, here, let's go to our quick ad break, and then we'll come back and talk about that a little bit more. Just a quick news list.
bet.
Yeah. So, uh, all right. So, thank you for joining us tonight. And if you'd like to support Trek That and our larger community, then you should consider signing up for Audible. Now, of course, this podcast is produced primarily by AS21 Studios. So use the AS21 code. So go to audibletrial.com/AS21, and you get your first 3 months free of audiobook coverage. I am an avid audiobook reader. I listen to audiobooks while I work, and I'm able to get through quite a few. I'm up to over 75 books read so far this year. Interesting ones I read this past week. Uh, we have Of Boys and Men by Richard V. Reeves, Why the Modern Male is Struggling, Why It Matters, and What to Do About It. Before that, I did a fiction book, The Banned Bookshop of Maggie Banks by Shauna Robinson. She is a African-American author who was born in California but now lives in the Virginia suburbs of D.C. And it's about a fictional town in Maryland where a woman is brought in to run the bookshop, and it's a town that's based entirely around supporting a famous author that lived in the town. And so the bookshop is only allowed to sell the books by the author and books that the author would have read, specifically the classics.
Mm.
And so she starts having to sell more modern books. So when you think banned bookstore, it's not talking about like the common banned books that are in conversation today, but it's more just things slightly outside of what was expected in that storyline. And I thought the story was pretty good overall. So there's a wide range of books available to you on Audible, over 180,000 titles. And when you sign up, you get your first 3 months free, which means your first 3 audiobooks are free. And with Audible, once you download an audiobook, it is yours forever. When I first signed up for Audible, I got Paddle Your Own Canoe by Nick Offerman, the star of Parks and Rec and various other things, including he was just on the final season of The Umbrella Academy on Netflix. And his great memoir, I'll Paddle Your Own Canoe. And he reads it himself. A lot of those celebrity memoirs tend to have celebrities read them themselves. And the funniest one is you had Amy Poehler's book, Yes, Please, in which all the titles of each chapter were read by Kathleen Turner. And all of the quotes after the title before the main text were read by Sir Patrick Stewart.
Oh.
And then she had bits that were read by her, mostly read by her, but also bits read by her friends Tina Fey and Seth Meyers. So all of these kind of things are out there. You have some books that do full cast recordings. Like my first major audiobook read was World War Z by Max Brooks, which is told in a series of like vignettes of different people in the aftermath of the zombie apocalypse. And for the audiobook, it was a full cast recording with Mark Hamill, with Alan Alda, with Nathan Fillion. So many major voice actors and people that are out there, and just did a spectacular job telling this story. So check out Audible today. Go to audibletrial.com/AS21. Sign up, get your first 3 months free, and help us out while you're doing it. Also, want to point out that I have an active store on TeePublic, the Swift Art Store. It started with primarily the stuff for AS21, but it's gone beyond. I have local art projects, political stuff, but also just various phrases and artworks that come over the years. And then you got T-shirts, buttons, bags, hats, anything you could think of, different branded merch. So check it out. There are sales basically every other week. Check out today, see if there's anything you like. And even if there's something you don't like, feel free to share it, or check out other things on TeePublic from other artists. If you go on my link and go and visiting, I get credit for you having stopped at my store first. So that goes well. And one final thing news is a reminder that we are supporting the drive to save Lower Decks. Star Trek Lower Decks is going into its 5th and final season this fall. There is a drive to try to stay on. There's a change.org petition. You go to the address here and you can sign up. There's hope that either Paramount changes its mind and decides to bring Lower Decks back, or it gets picked up by Netflix or some other streaming site and additional seasons are made. So check that out today. Sign the thing at change.org or join the Save Lower Decks Facebook group and do your part today to help keep Lower Decks going. Okay. All right, so just final news list before we wrap it up today. So I made a mistake Thursday night in the Trekker's Delight live cast where we were talking about Prodigy. I brought up the news list and the news that Paramount Television was shutting down. And I talked about that as the demise of the hallowed, the famous Paramount Television, going back to original Star Trek, I Love Lucy, all of that.
Right.
I was incorrect.
Oh,
so the original studios that started Desilu, that became Paramount, are now CBS Television. So they got embellished into they got pulled into what is now CBS Television Studios. In 2014, Paramount launched Paramount Television with the idea of taking the movies that are in Paramount's vault and making TV shows based off of them. So the two major ones I knew of was The Offer, which was a Paramount Plus series based off of The Godfather, which is a single season miniseries telling the story of the making of The Godfather, starring Juno Temple from Ted Lasso and Miles Teller, who's been in a bunch of things. And it was actually pretty good. And then you have Jack Ryan, the recent Jack Ryan adaptation TV series starring John Krasinski, which has been on Amazon Prime. That is produced by Paramount Television. Now, when they shut down Paramount Television, they're not shutting down a studio. They're just shutting down this organization, and all of the shows that are currently in development by Paramount Television are moving over to CBS. So what they're doing is getting rid of duplicative positions. So you had someone in charge of CBS Television, someone in charge of Paramount Television. Now everyone's going over to CBS. You don't have two press offices. You don't have two different development offices. Like it's about restructuring and also downsizing, or is the British term for redundancies. You had redundancies by having two television divisions under Paramount Global. They are now just taking it down to one.
Okay.
So as far as the studio where Star Trek was filmed, that studio still exists. And in fact, it hasn't been Paramount for over 30 years. And that's because the studios change hands here and there. Like Desilu only had a 5-year commitment to the studio when they rented it. And then, of course, Lucille Ball sold out in 1968 to Paramount, with the time was owned by Gulf and Western. And they only kept that studio for a few more years after that before moving to another one in Culver City. So,
okay. So Star Trek is in no real.
Yes, Star Trek is under no threat. None of the shows produced by Paramount Television are under threat right now. But you always have to worry with a merger that things like that may end up getting cut, and it happened when Fox got acquired by Disney.
Yeah,
there were movies that were supposed to come out in the X-Men storylines that were canceled, and now with Deadpool, Wolverine have completely come to an end. Just things like that. All right, what was the other news thing?
I mean, that pretty much answered my question about what really happened with Paramount, but yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right. Well, feel free to like, share, leave your comments below. Now, this is getting first live streamed to the AS21 YouTube channel, but then we're going to download it and it'll be shared to the Trekker's Delight YouTube channel and all of its different feeds. So if you like it, let us know. And who knows, maybe in future we can get more panelists on here. Even you, if you have thoughts on some of the news stories coming up, reach out. We'd be welcome to have you, because as far as I'm concerned, getting a diversity of opinions is gold, because I see things from my viewpoint. Will sees things from his viewpoint. We're not going to agree 100% on things.
Right.
And the more viewpoints you get, the more different ways you see things. And just as an understanding of what a conservative trekker is, leave your opinion. What your thoughts? As far as I'm concerned, Star Trek is for everyone, and always has been, always will be. Now, the way they're telling stories today might be different from the one in the '60s, but as I see it, it's all continuing the legacy of what Gene Roddenberry started over 55 years ago. And with that, we roll the credits.